Welcome back. We're turning our focus today to a truly harrowing event.
Yes, the murders of the DeFeo family. It happened at their home, 112 Ocean Avenue in Amityville, New York.
The date was November 13th, 1974. And we need to state up front, this involves very graphic, violent detail, so please be aware, a clear trigger warning for what follows.
It can be deeply upsetting. Our goal here is to explore the known events, but strictly chronologically.
Right. Starting from the day before it all happened, right through to the aftermath, and eventually the death of Ronald DeFeo Jr.
And we'll be doing this with a necessarily somber tone. The pace will be deliberate, allowing space, for reflection on these tragic details, for us and for you listening.
The central figure, of course, is Ronald DeFeo Jr., known as Butch. He was 23 at the time.
And the victims, his family, his parents, Ronald DeFeo Sr., who was 43, and Louise DeFeo, 42.
And then his siblings. Dawn, she was 18, Allison just 13.
Mark, who was 12.
Yeah.
And the youngest, John Matthew, only 9 years old.
6 lives. It's important to pause and just acknowledge that loss.
Absolutely. The family had lived in that house, 112 Ocean Avenue, since 1965, so about 9 years.
Ronald Sr., the father, he worked at a Buick dealership.
Yeah, his father-in-law's dealership. And Louise, the mother, apparently once dreamed of being a model.
To outsiders, to neighbors, they seemed, well, normal. A nice family, even.
Involved in the community, church activities. They even had a St. Joseph statue on the lawn.
And inside, apparently, life-sized family portraits. Quite grand.
But as we often find, beneath that surface, there were problems. Tensions.
Particularly between Butch and his father, Ronald Sr.
Right. The father was known to be strict. Some reports even describe him as abusive.
And Butch had his own struggles, too.
Yes. He was apparently bullied quite badly for his weight as a kid. Later, he started using amphetamines, drinking heavily.
And the fights with his father, they weren't just arguments.
No, they were frequent and reportedly intense. There was at least one incident where Butch actually pulled a gun on his father.
So that underlying tension, that history, it's crucial context.
Definitely. Now, let's look at the day right before the murders. November 12th, 1974.
What do we know about that Tuesday?
Well, by all accounts, it just seemed like a completely normal day for the DeFeo family.
No obvious signs.
None that have ever come to light. It just unfolded like any other day.
Until the early hours of the next morning, Wednesday, November 13th.
Yes. The murders are believed to have occurred around 3 o'clock in the morning, 3 a.m.
And the weapon was identified pretty clearly.
It was. Lever-action Marlin rifle, Model 336C.
The way they died, it was brutal.
It is. All 6 family members were shot in the back.
The children, Dawn, Allison, Mark, John Matthew, each shot once.
And the parents, Ronald Sr. and Louise, they were both shot twice.
And found. How?
All of them were found face down in their beds.
Just horrifying.
And there are some disturbing details from the physical evidence. It suggested that Louise, the mother, and Allison, the 13-year-old daughter, might actually have been awake when they were killed.
Oh, God. That adds another layer of terror.
It does. And then there's the enduring mystery of, well, how did nobody hear anything?
A high-powered rifle being fired multiple times.
Exactly. Neighbors reported hearing no gunshots. And inside the house, no signs of any struggle.
Was there ever a theory about drugging?
Yes, that was considered. The idea that maybe the family was drugged beforehand, but the autopsy reports, at least the ones publicly known, reportedly came back negative. No drugs, no alcohol detected in the victims.
So more unanswered questions. It just deepens the mystery.
It really does. Okay, so let's move forward to later that same day, November 13th, the evening.
This is when the discovery happens.
Yes, around 6:30 p.m., Ronald DeFeo Jr., Butch, he goes to Henry's Bar. That's a local spot.
And he bursts in.
Apparently, yelling for help, saying his parents had been shot.
Who was there? Who went back with him?
A few people from the bar, Robert Bobby Kelsky, who was a friend of Butch's, John Altieri, Joe Yeswaite, Al Saxton.
And the owner, too.
William Scordamaglia, the owner of Henry's Bar. They all went with Butch back to 112 Ocean Avenue.
What did they find when they got inside?
The house was quiet. Eerily quiet, except for the family dog, Shaggy, who was barking, apparently locked in the kitchen.
They went through the house.
They did. Through the foyer, saw the dining room. It had red velvet wallpaper, a bouquet of roses on the table that were starting to wilt.
The living room.
Yeah, a baby grand piano, lavish decor, signs of a comfortable life.
But upstairs?
Upstairs, the smell hit them. The unmistakable stench of death. Very strong on the second floor.
And that's where they found them.
Yes. Ronald Sr. and Louise in the master bedroom. Ronald Sr. had a clear wound in his back. Louise was partly covered by a blanket.
And the children?
The younger boys, John and Mark, were in their shared bedroom. John was wearing a New York Knicks sweatshirt.
And Mark. He'd been injured recently.
Yes, his crutches and wheelchairs were there, near his bed. Just a terribly sad detail. Dawn and Allison were found later, in their own rooms.
It must have been absolute chaos and horror.
Unimaginable. It was Joey Yes White who made the call to 911 from inside the house.
And that call itself, parts of the transcript, they show the confusion.
Definitely.
Yeah.
He wasn't sure of the address at first, had to check the number, and initially he only reported 4 bodies because they hadn't found the girls yet.
The operator also seemed to struggle with his name, just sheer panic and shock.
Understandably so. The Amityville police arrived quickly, secured the scene.
But given the scale of it, it wasn't long before others took over.
Right, the Suffolk County Police Homicide Squad took charge of the investigation.
And Butch DeFeo Jr. and his friend Bobby Kelsky.
They were taken in for questioning immediately.
What was Butch's initial story?
He tried to point the finger elsewhere, claimed it was a mob hit. He even named someone Louis Fellini.
A mob hit. Did that hold up at all?
Not for long. Fellini had a solid alibi. He was nowhere near Amityville when the murders happened. So that story fell apart very quickly.
Which must have turned the spotlight right back onto Butch.
Exactly. By the next day, November 14th, the investigation was focused squarely on him.
And he was arrested.
Yes. And during the interrogation that followed, he confessed.
He admitted to killing everyone.
He did. Admitted to shooting his entire family. His words were reported as, once I started, I just couldn't stop. It went so fast.
Chilling. Absolutely chilling.
He also brought up something else. Hearing voices.
Voices.
Wow.
Telling him to do it.
Yes, he claimed he heard voices in the house commanding him to kill his family.
So, right away, you have the confession, but also this claim about voices. What about motive? What were investigators thinking?
Well, a couple of things stood out. Life insurance money was one. Apparently, Butch asked the police quite early on about accessing his parents' policies.
Well, quite telling.
And then there was the history, that volatile, violent relationship with his father. That was seen as a major factor.
Did they find the murder weapon where he said it would be?
They did. He told them he'd thrown the Marlin rifle off the Richmond Street dock.
And it was there.
Yes. Police recovered it from the water near the dock. That discovery seemed to corroborate his confession at the time.
So, arrest, confession, weapon found. Seems straightforward, but then comes the trial.
Right. The trial started about a year later, October 14th, 1975.
And the defense strategy was?
Not guilty by reason of insanity. His lawyer brought in a psychiatrist, Dr. Daniel Schwartz.
And Dr. Schwartz testified.
That DeFeo claimed he was hearing voices, that they were plotting against him, essentially that he acted in self-defense because of this paranoid delusion.
But the prosecution had their own expert.
They did. Dr. Harold Zolan. He argued that yes, DeFeo had abused drugs, heroin and LSD were mentioned, but that his underlying issue was antisocial personality disorder.
I mean, he knew what he was doing.
Exactly. Dr. Zolan's view was that DeFeo was aware of his actions, that it wasn't insanity, legally speaking.
Did DeFeo himself say anything during the trial?
He made statements in court. He specifically admitted killing his 12-year-old brother, Mark.
And he repeated that chilling phrase.
Yes. I killed them all. Once I started, I just couldn't stop. I killed them all in self-defense. That self-defense claim tied into the insanity plea.
How did the jury respond?
They rejected the insanity plea. In December 1975, they found him guilty.
On all counts.
6 counts of second-degree murder, 1 for each family member.
And the sentence.
6 concurrent sentences, 25 years to life for each count.
Which essentially means life in prison.
Effectively, yes. He was never getting out.
But his story didn't end there, did it? The accounts he gave later, they changed. A lot.
Dramatically. Over the decades he was incarcerated, Ronald DeFeo Jr. gave numerous and often wildly contradictory accounts of what happened that night.
It just muddies the waters even further.
Completely. For instance, in 1986, he did an interview with Newsday. Big reversal.
What did he claim then?
In that version, he said his sister Dawn killed their father. Then, he claimed his mother, Louise, killed the other siblings in a rage.
And he killed Louise.
Yes. He said he killed his mother, but claimed it was out of fear. Fear of his maternal grandfather, Michael Brigante Sr., and his uncle, Peter DeFeo. He alleged they had mob ties.
Wow. And he added other people into this story?
Yes, in this 1986 version, he claimed he was actually married at the time to a woman named Geraldine Gates, who also went by Rua Romano.
Yeah.
And he claimed her brother, Richard Arando, was somehow involved or present.
Okay, that's one version. Then there was another one later.
Yep. Fast forward to the year 2000. He spoke with an author, Rick Osuna. Different story again.
What was this one?
This time he claimed he did commit the murders, but not alone. He said he did it with his sister Dawn and two unnamed friends.
Why? What was the motive in this version?
He claimed his parents were plotting to kill him. So preemptive strike, supposedly.
And in this story, Dawn killed.
He claimed Dawn killed the younger siblings. Then he said he killed Dawn herself in a fit of rage.
These stories are all over the place. It makes it impossible to know what, if anything, to believe from him later on.
Precisely. It casts doubt on everything he said after the initial confession.
What about physical evidence sometimes brought up, like gunpowder on Dawn's nightgown?
That's often mentioned, yeah. Gunpowder residue was found on her nightgown.
So does that mean she fired a weapon?
Not necessarily. The ballistics expert at the trial actually testified about this. He explained that residue just proves proximity.
Meaning she was near the rifle when it was fired.
Exactly. It doesn't prove she pulled the trigger. That's a really important distinction.
Okay. Let's talk about Geraldine DeFeo, or Gates, or Rua Romano. This woman, Butch, mentioned in the '86 interview.
She adds another whole layer of complexity. She claimed she was in a serious relationship with Butch before the murders.
Did she say they were married?
She asserted that she considered herself his wife, and she claimed to be the mother of his child, born in 1974, before the killings.
Is there any proof of a marriage?
No official marriage certificate has ever surfaced. But interestingly, some of Butch's friends did corroborate that they were together, that the relationship was real. Hans Holzer, William David, others mentioned knowing her.
Why didn't she speak out sooner?
She said she kept silent for many years, primarily out of fear for her safety.
But she did eventually make statements.
Yes, later on. Notably, during a 1992 appeal hearing for Butch, she refused to back up his story about a fictitious accomplice he'd invented by then. She wouldn't lie for him.
Did she face repercussions for trying to come forward?
She alleged she did. Claimed she faced threats, even said she was arrested at one point when she initially tried to share what she knew.
What was Butch's reaction to her refusal to help him later?
He turned on her, publicly denounced her after she refused to remarry him, which he apparently asked her to do from prison, and refused to help him profit from the murders through book deals or movies.
Just adds more drama and uncertainty. And what about those alleged mob connections? The grandfather.
Right, Michael Brigante Sr. There have been persistent rumors, and some reports claim an FBI tape exists, where Brigante supposedly talks about arranging a hit on Butch, on Ronald Jr.
Has this tape ever been confirmed or released?
Its existence and content remain unconfirmed as far as public knowledge goes, but the suggestion feeds into those theories about possible organized crime involvement, however tangential.
Okay, let's shift focus slightly to the house itself, 112 Ocean Avenue. It became famous for entirely different reasons after the murders.
Indeed. About 13 months after the DeFeos died, in December 1975, a new family moved in, the Lutz family.
And they didn't stay long.
No, just 28 days. They fled the house, claiming they experienced intense, terrifying paranormal activity.
Which led directly to
The book, Jay Anson's The Amityville Horror, published in 1977. It was a phenomenon. Huge bestseller.
And then the movie started.
Exactly. The book and the subsequent films really cemented the house in the public imagination, but shifted the focus almost entirely to a supernatural horror story, away from the actual family tragedy.
Did paranormal investigators get involved too?
Oh yes, Ed and Lorraine Warren famously investigated, as did Hans Holzer, parapsychologist. They all suggested the presence of malevolent spirits or negative energies in the house.
Fueling the haunting narrative.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's really crucial to contrast this with what happened next.
Subsequent owners.
Yes, people who lived in the house after the Lutzes have consistently reported nothing. No paranormal experiences at all.
Like James Cromartie.
Right. He bought the house in 1977, lived there for 10 years. He was very clear. Nothing weird ever happened there during his time.
So the famous haunting seems confined to that one 28-day period with the Lutzes.
That's how the record stands based on owner accounts. The house has changed hands several times since then.
And they even changed the address, didn't they?
They did, to try and deter sightseers and, distance the property from the notoriety. It's now 108 Ocean Avenue, not 112.
But the fascination persists. I remember when it was sold in 2010.
For $950,000, yes. And the moving sale held by the sellers drew huge crowds, hundreds of people just wanting a glimpse or maybe a morbid souvenir.
How did the local people in Amityville feel about all this attention?
Generally, not happy about it,
Yeah.
understandably. The town, the local authorities, they've consistently expressed frustration with the way the murders and the subsequent horror story define Amityville to the outside world.
It overshadows everything else.
It does. If you look at the Amityville Historical Society website, for example, there's no mention of the DeFeo murders or the Letts family at all. It's a deliberate omission reflecting a community desire to move on from that chapter.
Returning to Ronald DeFeo Jr., he remained in prison for the rest of his life.
He did. He died in custody on March 12, 2021,
Where did he pass away?
at Albany Medical Center. He was 69 years old.
Was a cause of death released?
No, the official cause of death was not made public.
So as we conclude this exploration, we come back to the beginning, really.
Yes. Back to the undeniable tragedy, the loss of 6 people. Ronald Sr., Louise, Dawn, Allison Mark, and John Matthew DeFeo.
Their lives were ended in such a brutal way in their own home.
And despite the conviction, despite Butch's confession and his later contradictory stories, so many questions linger.
The why remains elusive in many ways, the full picture of what truly happened that night.
It's likely something we'll never know with absolute certainty. The controversies, the conflicting narratives, they ensure that.
If this chronological look at this very difficult case has been informative for you, we do hope you'll subscribe for more explorations of complex subjects.
And we genuinely invite you to share your own reflections or any questions that came up for you in the comments below. We know this case brings up strong feelings.
Thank you for engaging with us on this somber, tragic story and for approaching it with respect for the victims.